It is really sad. It is really sad sometimes when we're waiting to record these podcasts to be shown video on YouTube, audio on your favorite podcasting app, and somebody says something and it brings up a 60s song. And then I know all the words. And while we were waiting on you, Sam, to get your earphones correct, I knew every single word, so I lip sync it to the music going on. You missed it, Sam. You missed it. It's really sad that you missed it. But Alana got to see it and hear it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Alana, for bearing the brunt of that one for me.
Oh, but it was so good. It was so good. We are going to talk about the state of church consulting. It's a fascinating topic. It's a field and it's a discipline that 20, 30 years ago, hardly anybody had ever heard of. And today, well, there's a lot going on in church consultation. We'll get to that. We have an incredible sponsor that is a part of the Church Answers team, and that is Church Answers University. I got to tell you, this fast-growing school is doing so much. So many churches now have their own ministry where they are training their people to do the work of ministry, raising up people within their church. We currently have 50 Ugandans going through Church Answers University, has 10 courses, less than $1,500 in total cost. Now, here's the good news, though. We continue to be blessed by donors who are saying, if somebody wants this, I'll pay half of their tuition. So we have another 6 donors. I'll mention it on a webinar as well, but we have another 6 donors. And basically what we're doing is we're making certain that you really want to do this. So the $1,500 tuition for the 10 courses and all the books to get a certification in Christian ministry is cut in half. So roughly $1,500 to $750. It's a great opportunity for those who don't have formal biblical ministry, seminary, theological training to go through Church Answers University and get this certification at their own pace. If you're interested, contact Matt, M-A-T-T, at churchanswers.com. And I want to say if you are interested in this scholarship to cut the tuition in half, we now have 6 available. And we want to give that out as quickly as possible. Anybody around the world, and it can be in your church, wherever, come on to Church Answers University. And kind of the segue into that is Church Answers University comes along leaders to equip the church to do the work of ministry. And that's what church consultants do. Sam and I have often talked about church consultation. Sam was with me, Thom, at his early age with church consulting. I believe you were a teenager when you started doing some type of church consultation with me, Sam, and you're 43 now?
My memory is that I was 19, but that's a long time ago. Yes.
Okay. Well, you were a older teenager at that point.
Well, still technically a teenager, yes. In college, yes. crunching numbers for you with those Scantron. Well, I wasn't using the Scantron. You made Dr. Lawless do that. I had to manually tabulate everything.
Yeah. And I knew that someone like you would manually tabulate it well. In fact, you knew that you would do a better job than I would do on that type of detail.
I think so. Yes.
I know so. So we're going to talk about church consulting. We're going to give our insights on what we're seeing that's taking place right now, and we're going to give some future trends as well. Church consulting can have a wide range of possibilities. For example, our partner in Generosity and Stewardship, Church Growth Services, is a consultant in the stewardship area, in the generosity area. They help you to raise funds and they do an incredible job, or to raise your budget to whatever. Their Church Growth Services is a consultant in that area. So we have another partner named Brown Church Development Group, and they are a consultant in the area of design build and building and developing a master plan for churches and configuring sanctuaries into smaller sanctuaries and building bigger foyers and all like that. Those are 2 specialized consultants. Sam, you and I will be mainly talking about the area of general consultation or comprehensive consultation. not one of the specialties, but I did want to note that there are some specialties out there, especially since we have a couple of partners who are among the best in that.
Yeah, certainly. Church Growth Services, Mike is incredible. Brown Church Development Group, Todd, over there. Certainly, want you to get connected to them. And Church Growth Services is offering a free ebook. So we'll put a link in the show
Oh, I
notes
forgot about that.
for
I'm glad you
for
mentioned that.
that.
I got
Yeah.
to talk about them
Yeah.
ad lib, and I didn't even think about the
Five
ebook.
five generosity megatrends. So we'll provide that to you guys. So get in the show notes, click that link. It's free. I'm sure. And if you need their services, I'm sure Mike would be more than glad to talk with you.
We'll put the link into about Brown Church Development Group, since I have kind of ad lib mentioned both of those. Let's get back to the topic of church consultation from the broad perspective, the general consultation. When we do a complete one, we call it a comprehensive consultation. One of the things that we say emphatically, number one, if you want to become a church consultant, don't expect to get rich quick or at all, and have the expectation more that it is a side gig rather than it will become a full time. Sam, that is the case most of the time.
Yeah, it's pretty rare for somebody to be able to sustain themselves full time, for year after year as a church consultant. There's some that do, some that have been very successful. It's always been a side gig for me. It's always been a side gig for you. Church Answers does consulting, but it's not just a consulting firm. I mean, it's much bigger, and we do
Right.
more things than just consulting. So I would just say one of the best things to do if you're interested in getting involved in this world is to properly set expectations. And a good expectation is, hey, if this becomes a full-time profession, big if, it's probably going to take some time. And
Mm-hmm.
frankly, I like being a pastor and a consultant because it keeps me fresh with what's really going on in the church. So I would just say if somebody's listening to this, that is a pastor or serves the church in some way, they're interested in consulting, wondering, hey, can I be a pastor and a consultant? I would say actually, in many cases, that's better because you are at ground level and can talk the language with other pastors and church leaders.
I am the only person on our team that does consulting that is not also a pastor. I'm going through all of our team members, and everybody else is an advantage. Well, I guess I take that back. Brad Wagner and I. But there's another commonality between Brad and me. We're old. And so we've served in local churches in pastoral positions, but the rest of the team, much younger than us, are also serving in pastoral positions. So it is a side gig for the rest of our team who does consulting. So you're exactly right. So church consulting, side gig. Don't look at it as a full-time profession. Most of the time, Sam said it correctly, set your expectations. Now, one thing that we're seeing in frequency at Church Answers is that smaller churches are now more interested in church consultation today. We hardly ever heard from them in the past as far as approaching us. By small churches, we typically mean churches under 150, under 100, maybe even under 75. I know some of those categories are medium, but what's at play there? Why, Sam? Why are the smaller churches now saying, okay, we're interested? What's going on?
Well, I would say that one, churches are recognizing that they have problems
Yes.
more so today than in the past. Smaller churches as they get smaller, they understand, hey, there are problems. We need to address those problems. And obviously we need to caveat this discussion. Just because a church is small doesn't mean it's unhealthy.
True.
Your trajectory is excellent. So when we talk about small churches, I don't want to talk negatively because there's a lot of churches that are small that are healthy. They're moving in the right direction. But in the past, we would just rarely hear from smaller churches, whether they were healthy or not, to do a consultation. I don't think a lot of these churches were aware that consulting was even an option for them. Price is a limiting factor for a lot of these churches, not all, but for many of them, a big comprehensive consultation with a whole team coming on site multiple weeks. A lot of them can't afford that. So what we've done at Church Answers is we've done these digital consultations. We've done different kinds of consultations for churches at different budget sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we've done comprehensive consultations for small churches too. There's some that can afford the price of bringing people on site, but with digital streaming now, it's enabled us to, Zoom wasn't a thing 20 years ago. We can do a Zoom consult now. We can even see your facility if you're willing to walk around with your phone. And in the past, that just wasn't possible. So I think that there's different kinds of consultations that are available that make it appealing to small churches. I think the small churches are now more aware of their problems and are willing to do something about it. And technology has enabled us to streamline some consultations and make them available to small churches. So it's no longer just the big mega church, large church, big regional church sort of product or resource. It's now available just about any size church.
And speaking of specialties, Brad Wagner and I were in Orlando this past weekend from the point of this recording, and we had a singular purpose. We wanted to look at their traffic flow of people and cars, and we wanted to look at their welcoming process. That's what they wanted from us. Fascinating. Here's where it ended up. We ended up, we mentioned Brown Church Development Group, the design build firm. We ended up referring them to Brown because part of the flow problem was a facility problem. And so we said, let's get with Brown and maybe look at some master planning type of issues. So we did a specialty, hospitality and traffic flow, and we referred it to a specialty because we're not in the design build or the master planning area. So we referred them to Brown. So those are, we've just like that given 3 examples of consultations: comprehensive, hospitality, building 4 with generosity. And of course, we mentioned church growth services there. Point number 3 in this, interim pastors now are acting more like consultants, but there are unavoidable differences between the 2 roles. And what I mean by that is if you're an interim pastor, you are perceived by many of the church members first to be a shepherd before you are a consultant. You can provide advice and you can provide guidance, but they're also looking to you as a shepherd. When you go into a consultation, Sam, those church members that you see, that you meet with, that you interview, they're not looking at you as their pastor. They're looking at you as an outside voice, outside eyes and ears to do the consultation.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very important distinction. I just recently did a consultation in Kentucky. Just sent them the big report that we put together for them. Great pastor, good group of elders. Very excited about what we're able to recommend to them. And I think they're going to really act on it and do well. There is not a person in that church that thinks of me as their pastor. Not at all. I am very much the consultant, and I play that role. But if you're the interim pastor, you may use some tools if you have training as a consultant. But
That's exactly right.
It's very difficult to be the interim pastor and the consultant at the same time and fulfill both of those roles properly. So I would just say that it's a bit of an either or thing. Either you're the interim pastor or you're the consultant. But I think the tools that you use can be interchangeable there. So I would just caution anyone that's wanting to be in a role of interim pastor on an ongoing basis, do multiple interim pastorates. I think that you can use a lot of the church consultation tools. We've had interim pastors get trained in Interim Pastor University and Church Consultation University and find them both beneficial. But the perspective of the people's different. As a consultant, you're looking at the institution as a whole. You're
Right.
giving the organization advice. Well, when you're a pastor, you're very much dealing one-on-one with people and shepherding people in their own personal lives. So I think that there's a place for both interim pastors and consultants. I think there is overlap, particularly with some of the tools that you use, but I would caution you to think that you can fully fulfill both obligations at the same time.
We talk about scope creep quite often when we talk about consultations or any other type of assignment for that matter. And scope creep, properly defined, is simply the client is asking you to go beyond the assignment that you agreed to do. So, hey, while you're here, can you do this? Or, hey, can we have this call? Can we have this call? I want to tell you where I'm involved in scope creep right now. You and I have done several expert witnesses consultations, which basically means that a law firm representing most of the time a church, there's some type of legal issue going on, and we're called on to be an expert witness, usually for the church. Rarely is it in any other place, and that's what's going on here. Well, the law firm retained me as a expert witness, and I was very, very specific on my assignment, and they agreed to it. And they keep saying, "Hey, can you do this? Can you do this?" And I don't want to be too crass, but I finally said in an email, my guess is that you guys are charging by the hour, and you just keep asking me for freebies. So, you know me, I can be a little crass that way. It's not all about the money. It's just that we had set the expectations and they want more. So that happens in consultations quite frequently without malice. I will put it that way.
Yeah, I actually have a case of scope creep this week, and it's a former client who was. We did a consultation, completely done. He reached back out to me and said, "Hey, can we talk?" And I know what that means. Now, this is obviously you said without malice. This is a good pastor. It was a great consultation. I feel like we added a bunch of value to the church, and I feel like they listened well. Of course, I'm going to take this call and just hear him out on what's going on. But that's a case of scope creep. And if you go into this world, it will happen. It's never going away. This is human nature. You have an agreement. You're very specific with that agreement. They signed a contract, and now they want more. Now, that's not necessarily out of selfishness or anything. For all you know, they just really loved what you did. And man, they were impressed and they want to talk again. And to some degree, I will allow it, but there are big limits. I don't let it keep going. There are times just say, okay, yeah, I'll field this call, or I'll answer this question, or I'll send you an email, or whatever it is. But you do need to make sure if you're a consultant, you absolutely need to protect yourself from scope creep, because people will get to the point to where they take advantage of you, whether they think they're taking advantage or meaning to take advantage of you or not. They will.
We've already mentioned this. Digital consultations, also called virtual consultations, are on the rise. They'll continue to increase in popularity because the tools are available. You mentioned Zoom, but there are a lot more virtual tools out there that are available that were not just a few years ago. So that's one thing. And then the pandemic created the need for this when you could not go in person. And that's when we started really doing virtual consultations. They're going to increase. We're going to continue to offer them. They won't replace the in-person component, but they can come close in a lot of ways, Sam. So we will continue to see that. And again, that goes back to our second point. Smaller churches are going to do more of these because now they're not having to pay for travel costs. They're not having to pay for consultants to be gone 2 and 3 days. It can all be done via the internet or some type of technology.
Yeah, we hired a human resource consultant that we never met. And we've hired a human resource at West Bradenton. We've hired one that was highly involved, on site. He actually lives in Bradenton, so we were able to utilize him. But we've had another human resource consultant who, never shook their hand in person. It was all digital. It was very much worth our while to hire them. That's actually an area that I'm weaker in, is the whole legal side of human resources. And we had some issues at West Bradenton that we needed to get taken care of, including rewriting an entire personnel manual. So we had someone help us do that.
Sure.
And I would just say, if you're out there and you have an expertise in a certain area, whether it be bylaws, personnel manuals, Robert's Rules of Order, I mean, there's all sorts of nuances to the local church. You can actually create a consultation business around that. If you really know your stuff in one area and you just become known as the expert in that area, and if it's a specialty, there's a lot of times where you don't have to be on site. If you're teaching someone about technology, you can use technology. You don't have to be there in person. So, if you're interested in being a consultant, I would just say, generalist is what we do. But you may find yourself doing a lot in a specialty area and adding a lot of value.
Yeah, generalist is what we normally do. But to be clear, what I did this last weekend was specialty. but they ask you to. Well, I want to close it, Sam, by talking about certifications, because we offer three primary types of certifications. I could go into others. I would say the foundational certification is certification in church consultation, and you really need to build from there. You can do the others, but that's the first one. The next one you talked about, there's Interim Pastor University. It's a certification to show that you've gotten the training in interim pastor work. And then the other one is revitalization certification, a specialty of consultation that's becoming a very broad specialty. I know that's an oxymoron to say it's a broad specialty, but it's growing because the need is growing so much. And you usually don't put three different types of information into the hands of people because it gives confusion. But we're going to put the show notes for all three of those: certification in Church Consultation University, certification to be an interim pastor, and then certification in revitalization certification. You can do any of them as a standalone, but you can also do them building upon Church Consultation University. Man, there's so many things I'd like to go over here, Sam, but we try to keep these relatively brief. So I'll let you give Tyndale its due as we close out.
We certainly want to thank our great sponsor, Tyndale. They've got so many good resources. Let me tell you about one of them. In Reason to Return, Erica Anderson delves into the reasons why many women are leaving the church. With gentle insight and thoughtful research, she invites Christian women who are hurt or disillusioned by the churches of their pasts to fulfill their unmet spiritual longings for God and community and consider what the church might still have to offer them. I think this is a very important book. It's a unique research question that I haven't seen answered before, really. So good job to Erica Anderson in Reason to Return. Fascinating book. Would encourage you to go pick it up. Reignite your faith and move closer to the best life God has for you. Use the code RETURN25. That's 25. RETURN25 to save 25% off your purchase of Reason to Return at navpress.com. navpress.com. Use that coupon code RETURN25, save 25% off your purchase. Again, that's Reason to Return by Erica Anderson.
All right.
We certainly want to thank all of you for tuning in today. You YouTubers, thank you for watching. For those of you who are listening, we certainly appreciate you doing that as well. Give us a rate, review, subscribe, thumbs up, all the stuff for the algorithms. I know we say that, but this time, do it. Do it. Help us out. If you like the show, give us a review, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to Church Answers. We've got a whole YouTube channel. We're putting out content all the time. Thank you, Alana and others, for helping us put that content out. When I say we, I don't mean me. I just get to record. I just do the shows. We have a whole team around this that really helps us out. So thank you, Alana. Thank you, Hakeem. Thank you, everyone involved. We'll see you next time.
Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just two. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just two or three things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism and whether the church is doing it or not.
Bingo.
And then I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis?
Double bingo. Well. And maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.